I'm Captain Logan, and joining me in person is Connor Nielsen. And today, Connor and I are going to count down our personal top 10 films of the last decade, of the 2010s. This is Connor's idea. I thought it would be really fun to take a look at movies that are not superhero things, because I'm going to do a top 10 superhero movies of the decade, just like I did the previous decade, because I've been at this for so long, it's finally time to do that again, Connor. And so I thought it would be cool. I didn't want to play my hand. I didn't want to tell everybody what some of those movies were already. And there's so much other stuff that I thought would be nice to get to talk about. And I know that Connor's a movie buff. Connor saw probably 90 times more movies than I did in this last decade. And so I knew you would have a lot of cool stuff to bring to the table too if we didn't do any superhero stuff. So this is going to be each of our 10 favorite movies from last year that are not superhero things. Any particular criteria that you used to break down this list, since you probably saw 1,900 movies?
Yeah, so only 3 movies I saw in the 2010s was a perfect 10. And from there, I made I'm trying to make a top 100 list right now. And
yeah.
Full disclosure, this is not as complete a list as I want it to be right now. There's a lot of movies from 2011, 2012, and 2013 I just haven't seen yet. And even in 2019, at the end, they just decided to dump all the good movies in the last month and a half of 2019. So I haven't seen Marriage Story, which I'm sure will destroy me and will be a 10 out of 10 or something.
I keep meaning to see that too. I haven't done that yet.
And I still need to see Dolomite Is My Name, because that movie just looked awesome. What
is that movie that Joe Pesci came back for?
Oh, The Irishman?
I haven't seen that yet.
That movie's awesome. I saw that movie twice and in theaters, even though it's a Netflix movie.
Might have wound up on my list. People keep saying good things about that, so I don't know.
But yeah, Moonrise Kingdom I haven't seen. Her I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Gravity I haven't seen.
Obviously goes without saying, but these are just based on the things we've seen.
Yes.
The stuff we know.
But I had to give a movie a base of an 8 or higher. That's my criteria.
Sure.
And
I wasn't ranking as I went along, so I literally just went back and looked at lists of movies that came out in the last decade and threw on 40 or 50 that I thought might make the list, and then dwindled them down, because you're always doing the list thing, and this is not a thing that I keep up with.
But that's the thing, though, is I kind of wish I hadn't.
Oh, interesting.
In 2015, the movie Brooklyn, which I love, was not in my top 10, but the movie Spotlight, which won Best Picture, was. Over time, I think Spotlight's a really good movie, but Brooklyn would be in my top 10. And the Hateful Eight would be higher on that list. And so
you don't want to just base this on math. You don't just base this on numbers, because the numbers that you had back then, you're a different person now than you were back then.
Exactly, yeah. And especially, there's some movies that were in, my 4 to 6 range on, all 2015, 2016, 2017 list. I haven't seen them since then, so I kind of have this, I need to revisit them sort of mentality. And
you can't do this with everything fresh in your mind, because
exactly.
there's no going back and rewatching there's no preparing for this video properly. Yeah.
So this is just an estimation, and I'm happy with the list I have right now.
So when you do your 100, you're probably assuming that what we do here won't necessarily stick, even.
Not necessarily. So, and that's why I kind of like doing this, is at this moment in time, this is what I thought was the best.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty authentic, because the 2010s just ended. Mm-hmm. So there's not as much hack fraudery going on. So, but if anybody's interested in, I do review movies, just not on YouTube. My Letterboxd account, I do have reviews of just about everything I watch, and if there's any movie you're curious I have or have not seen, you can just go to my films tab, and it has everything that I have seen. So if you're wondering why I haven't seen Moonrise Kingdom, well, if you go to my Letterboxd, you'll see I have not seen Moonrise Kingdom. So that kind of, I think, irons things out when it's, why haven't you seen this? Well, I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and get started and start breaking these down. We're also going to do some runners-up later. Obviously, an entire decade's worth of movies. This was not easy to narrow down. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I hate that's not on here that I want to talk about later, and I'm sure you have a lot of that too. Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. And Connor, we're going to let you start. Why don't you just throw out your number 10, sir? I didn't put years down for mine. I should have done that.
My number 10 is, unfortunately, I hate to pick such an incendiary filmmaker now, but in 2012, he made this movie called Looper, and everyone liked it.
Looper was in my initial list of 40 or 50. Yeah,
that movie rocks.
Yeah,
I like the
it's
way
great.
I like Ryan Johnson as a
Most of the
filmmaker.
reason I didn't include it was because I don't remember it that well, and I don't know if I went back to it if I'd like it as well. But
Well, you see, I watched it after The Last Jedi came out. And
look, I don't like Last Jedi. He is a really good director.
Yeah.
He did 3 of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. Like,
yes. And Knives Out, which is not on my list, rocks. And
I will watch that at some point. But
but like what I like about Ryan Johnson, especially with Looper. Now I watched Looper shortly after watching Last Jedi. It made me like Last Jedi more. I love Last Jedi, and I like that he loves film, and you can tell his love of film, like it echoes through his movies, and the way he blends genre, the way Looper blends time travel sci-fi with like anime imagery and like just general like Hong Kong action cinema, like something in a John Woo movie. He's like putting all that stuff in there, and I think it's so organic and it feels so alive, the world he creates. And there's a whole sequence where Bruce Willis, it all just leads up to him going, Rainmaker. And it's the coolest moment ever. And Bruce Willis like showed up to act.
I was going to
awesome.
say, that was in the midst of a lot of Bruce Willis phoning stuff in. If you go look at Glass from last year and then you look at that, it's night and day. They're 2 totally different people. Bruce Willis has always had that. This last decade, he's bipolar.
Ugh. But yeah, terrific cast, terrific story. Some of the time travel stuff maybe doesn't make sense, but it's time travel.
That doesn't kill it, yeah.
And at the end of the day, I just think it's a good story about.
Yeah, there's a brain-breaking thing that happens at the end of that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I like that character of Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis. I believe they're the same guy, and it's a movie about redemption, and I really like it.
Well, Levitt was also on fire right then. We haven't seen anything from him in a long time.
I don't know what he's been doing. He made like Don John, and then he like just got out of that.
And that was years ago now.
That was 2013, yeah.
Yeah, Don John, which was also on my short list for a while.
Yeah. So what's your number 10?
My number 10 is Murder on the Orient Express.
Wow.
I thought it was just awesome. I love that movie. It's wonderful, and the kind of genre that doesn't always grab me, but like I love Branagh. I haven't seen Branagh do anything like that. I haven't seen Branagh like in a leading role in a really long time. And like that thing's got such a killer cast. It's got a really cool soundtrack. It's really well directed. Like I think it's a gorgeous movie. I like it a lot.
Awesome. You're totally gonna be there for the sequel then?
Well, yeah.
Awesome.
You're gonna tell me you didn't like that movie?
I thought it was all right.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't dislike it.
You're just surprised I put it on the list.
I wouldn't have guessed it would have been that high up. But
sometimes I get really excited and won over by things that I just went to because I liked people in the cast, but I wasn't really expecting a ton from it. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those movies that just kind of blindsided me, where I was like, I get excited when a thing makes me feel like a fan of a genre I'm not of.
That's always a wonderful experience.
And that's what I had with that movie. I also love Daisy Ridley and finally got to see her act in something. Not that she has a huge role in that, but... And the other thing, too, is I never read that book and...
I was going to ask.
Did not know the ending. And didn't call it, and it was... like, a lot of this, with this particular movie, was an experience for me. I got to the end of that movie and got to be surprised by the whodunit of it all. And I don't know if I would have... I mean, I imagine I would have liked it. I would have still liked it a lot had I known the source material, although I don't know how closely it follows it because I've never actually read that book. Eric finally started looking at it. He expected it to be really dry. He was like, it's not dry. It's really entertaining when you go back and actually read the original material. So I will do that at some point.
Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Daisy Ridley's love interest in that movie.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of a spoiler. But he's from Hamilton, and that's where I know him from.
Oh, okay.
And he's awesome. I like that actor
Which
a lot.
I've listened to but have not got to see, of course.
He plays Aaron Burr.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so who's your favorite performance of that? I mean, you said Daisy Ridley, but was there another performance?
And, yeah, I mean, hers is certainly not my favorite performance because she doesn't get,
Yeah.
I mean, it's Branagh, which is obvious, but beyond Branagh of the rest of it, I was surprisingly impressed with Johnny Depp in that. I thought he was great, but I also really enjoyed Michelle Pfeiffer in that.
She was wonderful. I like Judi Dench a lot. She
Me
kind of
too.
ends up just playing the same person all the time, but she's really good at that role, and I really
It's
like
Keanu Reeves, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You just keep casting him as the same guy, but weirdly, like, those are not versatile actors necessarily, but the thing they do can be versatile in that it works for different
Yeah.
in different contexts. It's weird.
Well, she was in Cats, and it's a role I've never seen her give before.
I'm gonna finally see that. I have to know. I have to see the train wreck of it all.
All right.
All right, what's your number 9, man?
My number 9 is Baby Driver.
Yeah, almost made my list. Did not, but almost did.
This was basically, as you say, an experience in the theater for me, where I heard the title. I thought it was a lame title. I actually didn't see a trailer for this before it came out. I just knew Edgar Wright was in it, and Ansel Elgort, the actor, I'd seen him in a couple things. I thought he was all right. But this was just one of those things where everything worked and everything clicked. And it made me realize that I really like sign language in movies because it's a very visual, cinematic thing. And seeing that aspect, even like just the kind of slower scenes where he has that foster father who's deaf, and he like is signing and all that stuff. Like even those like kind of more quiet, slow scenes were still very visually interesting. And the way the camera swings around, the soundtrack is electric, and the cast all around, like even like smaller roles, like Aiza Gonzalez is in this, and first time I ever seen her in anything, she was almost gonna be Catwoman, and I mean I like Zoe Kravitz, but I'd like her to be Catwoman. But John Hamm, who I feel like has always like been misused since he got off of Mad Men.
Yeah, that's right.
He's awesome in this, and
he keeps picking the wrong roles, I think.
Yeah, like Keeping Up with the Joneses. What's that?
I also want to finally see, not that I've seen everything John Hamm's been in, but I want to see John Hamm finally play something where he lives up to his name. I want to see a hammy role from John Hamm.
I think I might have, but I can't remember. He was pretty dry in Richard Jewell.
I didn't see that.
It was all right. But then, but with Baby Driver, the thing that kind of set it over the top for me is just Edgar Wright's editing, and it's such a perfectly edited movie. And we were talking about this a little earlier. They were actually editing that while they were filming it, and that actually results in like really clever moments in the movie where they kind of were able to see where it was going. So there's a part where he rewinds a song. That's because they knew that the scene would go on too long for the song. But
I think with a thing like that, I would never have thought to do it that way.
No.
But like, we've been hearing a lot of talk lately about how Rise of Skywalker was done that way out of necessity, and that was a bad move. With something like that, though, it's a dance as much as it's a story, right? And so it's about the cinematography and the choreography as much as it is anything. You almost have to choreograph the way the camera moves, like you're choreographing the movements of that guy basically doing a dance throughout almost an entire film.
Yeah. And
so you can see how editing as it goes, it's all about timing, it's all about rhythm, and so you're almost able to choreograph the footage.
Yeah, I love the way he edits his movies. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, I did not make it to this list, but another perfectly edited
movie. I love that
movie
too, yeah.
And I love me sweet car chases. It's got some sweet car chases.
And that's one of those things that I don't get immediately excited about, but from moment one, I'm like, oh, it's a car chase movie, and I hope that it's all the way through, because immediately I was seeing things I'd never seen in a car chase movie.
And the top of the third act happens with one of the most unpredictable moves I've ever seen in a movie. And that entire last act of this movie was riveting the first time I watched it. I had no idea where it was going. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I was just completely blown away by it. It's sheer excitement, and it's exactly what I want from an action movie, and it's got brilliant storytelling all around. So I
was also really impressed with how the theme of perception was handled. Like the like living in your own world in order to focus. Because of the hearing problem and all that. That was all really interesting.
Mm-hmm. What's your number 9? My
number 9 is Skyfall.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Skyfall.
Because Skyfall's awesome.
It is awesome.
And this is another, we'll see how many of mine end up being like this, but this is another, like, I'm not a Bond fan, I'm not a big Bond guy, and, like, I like Bond okay, but it's almost like I finally, with Skyfall, saw a movie that made me want to feel the way, or made me feel the way I want to feel when I'm watching a Bond movie. It ripped off Nolan in all the right ways. Like it was kind of fun to see like Batman imitate Bond, imitate Batman, and like it actually really worked. And I know you won't relate to this because you like Rises, but I needed Skyfall after Rises. I think I probably enjoyed that movie more because of when it came out. Because Skyfall was a better Dark Knight Rises than Rises in my opinion, and so like I really needed it for that. It's got problems. It has that same, like, how could the villain possibly be thinking 30 steps ahead the way he does, like the Joker in Dark Knight? It does have that. But besides that, it's brilliant, and I think it should kind of be the blueprint for how to like tell a good story and make the old fresh again while simultaneously banking on nostalgia. Like, it does both of those things, but it does it well. Like, it's weird how, like, I don't know, commercial of a piece that is, but it's still a really good piece. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like it works. Like, it gives you all those nostalgic beats, but it does it smartly. So you don't feel like you're being insulted by, like, remember how Bond has gadgets in his cars? You know, like, well, he does have those, and they use them, but we're also using all of the old versus new stuff to do something thematically interesting. And so, like, we're talking about nostalgia, but we're also talking about, like, the way the world changes. And, like, I liked the like the younger Q and the kind of the like you know, Bond versus Q thing, like the older guy versus the younger guy, and like what youth brings to the table versus what older people bring to the table. And there was new ground broken for Bond, while at the same time it was repeating itself in, like, a cool way. But it's also just really fun, and it's got a atmosphere that I just want to live in, you know? Like,
Definitely.
There are a lot of things on this list that are here as much for ambiance as anything, and Skyfall absolutely has that.
And Roger Deakins was the cinematographer, largely accepted amongst the film community as the greatest cinematographer ever.
Like, ever?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
He did. He does a lot of the Coen Brothers movies. He did Blade Runner 2049 cinematography.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that those two movies were both done by the same guy.
Yeah.
Because he's got, in both of those movies, he's got those big, long, like wide shots of, like, sky and
Falling.
Yeah, and falling, but I was just saying landscape in general. I remember seeing Skyfall and hearing people complain about this, and I did too, that, like, we would linger too long on those shots, and then on a second viewing I didn't know what I was talking about. They weren't anything like as long as I thought they were. And then, like, I felt like I needed them. Those movies both have the same thing that 28 Days Later did, where it just like it lingers on those big wide landscape shots.
Funny enough, Danny Boyle almost directed this next James Bond movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. I actually wasn't expecting it to be on your list because you talk about how you're just not a Bond guy, but that's cool that is there.
Yeah. I was just so into that movie that summer.
All right, my number 8.
Number 8.
Now, going between my number 9 and my number 8, they're basically tied.
Okay.
Because they're both car movies.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road is awesome.
It's wonderful.
It is visual storytelling perfection.
It's enough not my thing. I could not bring myself to put it on the list. I wanted
get
to.
that.
There just weren't enough spaces. But yeah, it's brilliant. What are you going to do?
It's the first Mad Max movie I ever saw.
Same here.
And then a couple years ago, a friend of mine who loves the Mad Max movies, we watched the first 3 together. And I don't like Thunderdome very much, but the first 2 rock. Fury Road is the best one. It is so exciting and exhilarating, and it has images that are so powerful and striking. And it's amazing how not subtle it is. And in any other movie, having the themes of the movie literally written on the wall would make my eyes roll.
Yeah.
It almost comes across as, like, subtle and tasteful and artful. Well, it doesn't almost. It does come across like that in a movie where a person has a flamethrower and guitar. You have just a guy with, like, has, like, bullets around him. He comes from Bullet Farm and all that stuff.
I think that works more in a thing like that because it's such a surreal kind of experience.
Yeah.
It's almost like a parable kind of thing.
It is. And it's like this delirious quality to it that's almost dreamlike. And
some of the best animes do exactly what you're talking about,
Yes.
where they just put the theme on the wall, like somebody spray painted it on a.
like, I watched Princess Mononoke for the first time this last year. Love it. It has a similar kind of sensibility to, like, or Mad Max has a similar sensibility to that in terms of just being, like you say, like almost like a parable.
Yeah.
But I loved Mad Max Fury Road. Furiosa is one of my favorite characters. That's kind of the movie that put Charlize Theron on my map, where, like, I'd seen her in stuff before. I thought she was a decent actress, but I was amazed at the performance she was giving in this kind of movie.
And that sticks with you real hard.
And I was amazed that she was like committing that hard to what, because Tom Hardy said he didn't think this movie would be any good, and like this legendarily had a horrible production.
Yeah.
Where Tom Hardy was almost not going to be Bane because he said, well, I'm going to be Mad Max, so I can't be Bane. And then they went to the desert, and I guess there was this torrential downpour, and the forest, or the desert was green in Australia, and they couldn't shoot in Australia that year, so he got to be Bane. And then, but during that, torrential downpour, all their sets got destroyed, so they had to rebuild all their sets. And
so if it weren't for that, he wouldn't have the hilarious reputation now for always acting with something on his face.
Yeah.
Because I can't stop talking about that. I think that's hilarious.
Did you see Dunkirk?
Does he have something on his face?
He has something. He's a pilot, so he has something on his face the whole time.
That's awesome!
So, but I love Mad Max Fury Road.
Did you like Dunkirk? Is that worth watching?
It's really good.
Is it? Okay.
Quentin Tarantino called it his second favorite film of the decade.
Interesting.
And he said it's his favorite Christopher Nolan movie, and strangely, Tarantino saying this about a current filmmaker, he called Christopher Nolan one of the greatest filmmakers of all time.
If Tarantino was here, he'd be like, Skyfall, get out of town.
Doesn't he like Skyfall?
Maybe he does, I don't know.
I don't know.
But you probably would have put it in the top 10.
Maybe.
Like, how come that's on your top 10? I don't know.
I would put The Skin I Live In, alright? It's awesome. Nobody saw it. Antonio Banderas is badass, alright? So that's probably what he would come in here doing.
I don't know why I was imagining it would somehow be more scholarly than that, but you're right.
That's the way he talks.
That's how he talks, yeah. No, that's a great movie.
Yeah. What's your number 8?
John Wick.
Almost made my list.
Did it not make your list?
It didn't make my list.
Wow! Well, it's awesome. I don't know what else to say about John Wick. I'm actually going to be doing a rewind on that in the not-too-distant future, so I don't want to say too much right now. But John Wick, I don't know, once again, another genre that's not like revenge thrillers, not necessarily my genre. But right away, it's going to be quicker to win me over because I love Keanu Reeves in The Matrix so much, and you get to see Keanu Reeves do Matrix-y things in something more grounded. I mean compared to The Matrix.
Yeah.
Because John Wick is a very stylized thing, and it's very comic book, and it's the kind of thing that I wanted from more, stylized, heightened comic book things, and this is fun because it's not based on anything, so it's like instead of making a comic book, we put it on screen, but John Wick could have just as easily been a comic book. And especially when you get into the sequels. That, as a franchise, I've really been enjoying watching the curtain being drawn back as you're seeing just how much more heightened it is and all the mythology stuff. But that first movie is such a wonderful, simple premise. And I still say that if it was going to be its own thing, John Wick should die at the end of that movie. I feel like everything is leading toward he dies at the end of that. Now it's a franchise, and it ought to be, now that I've seen those movies, so now it's difficult for me. It wasn't going to make my list just because I've always had that criticism. I still think as a piece, he probably should be dead at the end, but obviously, it's some of the most amazing fight choreography we've had in a long time. It's wonderfully visceral. That guy is bizarrely likable. It's one of those things where it's, the movie does not have to struggle at all to put me in somebody else's shoes and worldview. Where I'm not thinking about my own morality or ideology at all when I'm watching that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, he's gonna kill 150 guys, and I want him to. You know, it's awesome. It's fantastic. Yeah.
I'm never gonna forget watching that in the theater because my brother Spencer and I went to the theater. We heard it had some good reviews. We were the only ones in there, and we're like, this is something. What are we watching? And I remember I was working at the movie theater at that time, and 2 guys came in to see. They're like, "Hey, this is John Wick movie, any good? Keanu, he's burned me in the past. You guys are gonna love it." And they came out saying that was amazing. And when we went to go see the second movie, it was in a packed house.
Yeah,
that movie reached
and it's huge now. Yeah, that's one of the of course everything's got to be a franchise now. There's a part of me that wishes that it could have just remained this small, fantastic action movie. That's, as Eric always says, the kind of action movie we don't make anymore.
Yeah,
and I can't help but give it points just for being that good and original and not based on anything. Because everything's a decades later sequel now, or a remake, or
based on a comic,
on a comic or something. And it's really neat that it's just somebody had an idea, you know?
And what I think is amazing is I was watching that movie thinking, I need a John Wick comic book. Because it's it's such a rich world, and the character actors they got in that, Willem Dafoe, Adrian Palicki, Ian McShane,
it's
everybody.
It's got a crazy cast. Yeah,
it's great. and it's a watershed moment for action movies. Like,
Well, of course, yeah.
and I remember like a couple years
And now
afterwards-
everything wants to be John Wick, of course. Like,
But I saw like a terrible Jason Statham movie or something, and I was thinking like, how are we still making action movies like this in a post John Wick world?
yeah, sure. Because what Hollywood tends to do is when they see something get really successful, they don't go to the same drawing board that thing did. They just try to make it again.
Yeah.
And like superficially, so we don't go, well, what was the mode that the filmmakers' minds were in when they made this movie? That's how you get, and I mean, I know the ending of this is bad, but it was a phenomenon when it was a phenomenon. That's how you get something like Lost. You don't make Lost again. You get yourself in the headspace they were in. What hasn't been done before? How do we go really character driven and just build from the ground up? And that's what John Wick did.
It's awesome.
What is your 7?
My number 7 is Creed 2.
Creed 2?
Creed 2.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, full disclosure,
Yeah.
Before seeing the first Creed movie, I had not seen any of the Rocky movies.
yeah.
I
I think we had that conversation once, and you said you hadn't watched Rocky.
I liked Creed. It was awesome. It was really, really good.
So did you watch Creed and then go back?
No.
And you've never watched the Rocky movies?
And then I watched Creed 2.
I wish we had time while you were in town.
After watching Creed 2,
You know Rocky's like one of my favorite
Oh,
favorite
absolutely.
things.
And it's amazing. I didn't grow up with Rocky.
I didn't either.
But it seems like...
My wife introduced it to me. I don't know if you know this, but I didn't watch Rocky until I was in college.
Wow.
And it's one of my favorite things now.
But, like, I think what happened is when Rocky Balboa came out, I was still in elementary school, and a lot of people my age had fathers or mothers or, you know, parents or uncles or whatever who loved Rocky and wanted to show, like, my friends at that age Rocky.
Yeah.
And I never had that experience. So growing up, I just assumed no one really watched Rocky. But then when the Creed movies came out, all of a sudden everybody's a Rocky fan, and I'm, like, totally missed the boat on it.
Yeah, you're left out.
But then what happened is I watched Creed 2, made such an impact on me. I didn't cry, but I almost cried like 5 times in the theater.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I will bet you if I go back and watch all the Rocky movies, this will make me cry. So
A lot.
I went back and I saw the first Rocky movie.
Oh, okay, good.
I haven't seen 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, but I saw the first one. That movie did make me cry.
Of course it did.
It has the best I love you in movie history. And I'm trying to watch through all of this so I can watch Creed 2 again.
And isn't it sad that movies like that don't tend to win the Oscar anymore? Like,
No.
like of course that won the Oscar.
Blind Spotting won't get nominated, but we'll nominate and let Green Book win. What planet do we live on? Anyways, but Creed 2 was an experience in the theater.
Yeah.
At the time, I listed it as my number 1 movie of 2018. I watched this either the day before or the day after watching Fantastic Beasts 2, which is Star Wars prequels levels of bad. You missed out on it. You're lucky, and I envy you.
Can I? Sorry. Go ahead.
But Creed 2...
There's one thing I am burning to say about Creed 2.
But Fantastic Beasts 2 was one of the worst sequels I saw in 2018. Creed 2 was absolutely the best. It was the second time in a row that a sequel was my favorite movie of its year.
Wow.
And but what are you burning to say about Creed 2?
I just want to see your reaction when I say this. How did we see Dolph Lundgren give an Oscar-worthy performance?
I don't know.
It's freaking crazy.
At
At the same time as down the hall, Aquaman is playing and he's giving that performance.
But it's amazing. Like, and it's one of those things where Creed was a movie I liked a lot.
Lundgren is specifically one of the big things that made me cry when his wife gets up. I'm just like, his ex. I just can't handle it.
But like Creed, I thought was just a really good movie, and I liked it a lot. Creed 2 made me want to be a Rocky fan.
Wow.
It hit all the right beats. People say it's formulaic. There's a reason there are formulas, because when you do it right, you get Creed 2.
That's right. Yeah.
And there's like that image. One of the first images that made me almost tear up was when he's holding his child. And he has like the big like image of his father behind him, and he's seeing 3 generations of one family in one image. And like that moment where they're worried that their child is gonna like be deaf, and then Tessa Thompson walks out and closes the door, and it wakes the child up. Everyone was like, oh, in the theater, like people were like, he can hear. It's so great. And then, but the moment that my theater was really into this movie, when he gets sucker punched in the face and all the sound goes out in this fight.
Yeah.
This one woman in the back went, "Oh no!" And because everyone was so into it.
It's so visceral, and like Rocky was also always like that, but these movies kind of took it to another level.
But the thing that really hit home with me about this movie, is sort of this. It's like I was watching this and it almost felt Shakespearean. And then like an announcer person says, "It's almost Shakespearean." I was in such harmony with the movie. The movie was working for me so well. But it's about people like Creed and Drago's son kind of know they're too good for this.
Yes.
But they're doing it anyways because it's almost just like in their nature.
Yeah, that parallel was great.
And it was just a fascinating concept because I understood why they were doing that, even though it was kind of a stupid thing they would be doing in the first place. But they're almost like just being driven by their legacies at that point.
And that's consistent with the first movie because like he does not need to do that. He's a smart kid. He can go to school. He can learn a trade. That guy could be a doctor and he's boxing.
Yeah. It's a great movie. I went on way too long about that, but what's your number 7?
Well, and I also just want to say, like, I've always been really impressed with the Creed movies because they are accessible in a way that a lot of movies try to be and totally fail at. Those movies can get every kind of audience, young, old, black and white. They know they know what they're doing. The kind of like clash or maybe even like mix of cultures in those is so good, and like there's a consistency and a legacy with the Rocky movies going up into Creed, where it's impressive that I forget the name of the director from the first movie.
Ryan Coogler.
Coogler. He loved those movies and got them so well that he knew how to continue this on. There was always this kind of undercurrent of like urban culture stuff going on with the Rocky movies. There's always a little bit of a race thing there where like Rocky hangs out with a lot of black people and he's friends with black people, and we never talk about it. Like during a time where there were obviously really massive racial tensions, like that's just the world he lives in, and he sees completely past color. He never thinks about it. And then we get into the Creed movies and we have a black protagonist where we're seeing more from that lens, and we get like this total reverse where it's more from from the perspective of a guy that's grown up in that culture, and we're also so we're seeing like another culture, like a white culture through his lens. And it's just really cool that like we made it fresh again by just going to a totally other perspective.
Yeah. And Creed 2 was directed by someone who wasn't Ryan Coogler. I think it's Stephen Temple Jr.
I don't know who that is.
I can't remember if I'm getting that name right. I remember he made like one tiny movie and he was friends with Ryan Coogler. And
like
Ryan Coogler,
you'd have never known that Coogler didn't make it.
I don't know who the Stephen Temple Jr. guy is. I just know he made my favorite movie of 2018. And I'm jazzed for whatever he does next.
Yeah.
Also, it hit you in the macho place. I wanted to get up and run 5 miles when there's that part where he's just running and the car's behind him.
Yep.
And he runs and he runs and he runs, and then the camera kind of does that thing and the car's no longer behind him, but he's still running on the left third of the frame. It's awesome.
So you wouldn't think 8 movies in that the most recent one would have the best montage, but it maybe has the best montage. It's killer. That movie, and I just want to watch that. What are we at? Still 7?
Yeah.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Good movie.
It's really good.
That trilogy's great.
They didn't quite stick it with war for me. I liked it okay. It's weird that it's treated like the end of a franchise that I feel needs 3 more movies.
War was my favorite.
But oh really?
Oh yeah.
I think you said Shakespearean, like the relationship with Caesar and Coda is just it's perfect. It's awesome. That whole franchise is of course technically really impressive because I always buy those apes are on screen. When I complain about poor CG integration, I'm comparing everything to Planet of the Apes. Yeah. It's really hard not to. Once again, that's another reboot franchise that should not work and does. It's cool because it's a reimagining. You have no idea where it's going. It's a prequel reimagining that actually works really well. It's like it took notes of what not to do from stuff like Smallville. Yeah. And it's an epic, and it's got really sympathetic characters on both sides. The war strategy stuff is really interesting. The politics of it is really interesting. The way that like communication and diplomacy breaks down is really believable. It's beautiful. Like that's the one that I will continue to go back to. More than the other 2, most certainly.
And it's framed in such a way where you don't need to watch Raya's.
Yeah.
I mean, it has callbacks to it, but they don't you don't have to have seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
That's true. Well, and what's nice is that sort of like First Avenger and Winter Soldier, they're two very different kinds of movies.
Exactly, yeah.
I still think the titles are flipped.
I agree.
I still think that if you were going to do that, you should have started with Dawn, because you rise after you dawn.
And it's kind of about a monkey uprising,
Yeah.
It's got some of my favorite images of like any action movie or science fiction.
Yeah.
Got them with their guns on horseback. That has one of my favorite shots where it's mounted to the side of a tank and it's just spinning around as you see.
That's really cool. But the guns while they're riding horses, that's iconic, man.
It is. I really like.
That's one of those movies that feels where I watched that and I'm like, how did I not grow up with this movie? You know what I mean?
Yes.
We're like it feels like it should have always been there.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Matt Reeves is a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
I wanted him to make Episode 9.
Yeah, sure.
And because he comes from the Bad Robot company.
And so he could have.
He and J.J. Abrams had a TV show.
I didn't even realize that.
That starred Kerry Russell, who's Zori Bliss.
What was the show?
It was called Felicity.
Yeah, I know what that is, but I didn't know he was involved in it.
He was like the co-showrunner of it. But,
interesting.
But anyways, but Matt Reeves is a great filmmaker. I really like Cloverfield, and he did that.
I love Cloverfield. You're one of the only people I know that also likes Cloverfield.
I really like it. It's one of those things where I really like Cloverfield.
Yeah. Do
I
you
think,
feel like people turned against that movie? Where it was liked, and then it was, and maybe people just went back to it and didn't like it. But I don't know how many people actually went back to it. I don't know. I have 3 or 4 times. I still really like it. I don't know.
I remember there was a lot of hype for that movie for some reason. I didn't watch it until a couple years ago.
The reason it was so hyped was because it was such a sleeper campaign. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first movies that had a major viral advertising campaign where nobody knew what it was. And we just had a title. For a while, I don't think we even had a title. And we didn't know what the premise was. It was this really mysterious thing. And then you see the movie, and the monster is mysterious, and it's forever before you get to see it. But I think the hype with that was real because nobody knew what it was.
Yeah, and I think that movie, the way it capitalizes on fears of 9/11 just long enough after people want to move on.
Good call.
And it kind of feels like the American Godzilla in that way, which is clearly what they're trying to do. But I really like Cloverfield. But Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is a movie I really like. It's actually probably my least favorite of that trilogy, which I feel like a madman because everyone else loves that.
Sure.
My brother Spencer, when we watched that, he turned to me, he's like, how do you not love this movie?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I'm like, I think it's really good. Koba's a great villain. And Toby Kebbell, the actor, unfortunately has never been able to break through in anything else.
Yeah.
But he's a wonderful actor, and it's a really good movie.
It's just that, I don't know, that story is so much more involved and complex and has a lot more resonance for me anyway. I don't think War is a bad movie, but I was kind of disappointed with it.
You and Eric's review, I was kind of surprised by that, to be perfectly honest. Should I go into my number 6 now?
Let's do it.
My number 6 is Whiplash.
Whiplash.
So Whiplash is a movie that I saw at the perfect time in my life. By the way, this is number 6. My number 6 and number 5 are basically tied. Whiplash is a movie that came to me at the perfect time in my life. I was in orchestra in high school, and my teacher was very similar to Fletcher in this movie. But in terms of the intensity factor, if Fletcher's a 10, my teacher was a 6 or a 7.
Sure.
But there were times where he felt like this guy, and my brother actually he was a bass player and was more involved with band and whatnot. But when I watched this, I had to get my brother to watch this movie, and he loved it. It's his favorite movie of this decade. But I was just kind of blown away by it because when I went to go see it in the theater, I was there kind of by myself, and I wasn't really know what to expect. I just saw a kid on a drum set, and it's Miles Teller. I'm like, who likes Miles Teller, right?
Yeah.
And then J.K. Simmons shows up, and it just becomes this very intense exploration.
It's almost like that movie pushed that actor to be the best that he could be, just like the character in that movie,
yes.
right?
And this is directed by Damien Chazelle. This is not his first film, but it's the first movie of his anybody actually saw. But it's one of those things where it's about pushing yourself creatively, but also asking a question of, at what cost do you achieve greatness?
Yeah, it's about negative versus positive reinforcement.
And there's art through adversity in there.
Yep.
There's there's a lot of interesting explorations of like kind of what it is to like be an ambitious man specifically, and a lot of stuff like Fletcher as a villain is very interesting because of what he like his MO basically, and like once you get to the end, it's this big triumphant moment, but then if you think about it, it might not be.
Yeah.
And the final
is he a heroic mentor or not? And like it's up completely to your interpretation, I think.
Is Andrew
at the end
Neiman,
of the day.
did he break free or is he still under his control?
Sure.
And I don't know. And again, perfectly edited film. This won Best Editing at the Oscars, which it should have. And this kind of, like, Damien Chazelle, I don't think has made a movie this good. I like La La Land a lot. I think First Man's pretty good. But
yeah, First Man wasn't good enough to even make my top 40 or 50.
No.
But I like it.
And First Man, like, for me, like, movies about grief have this hurdle that they just can't seem to get over for me.
Oh, okay.
And,
sure.
Okay, I get that Neil Armstrong crying is sad. I don't know this guy well enough to know why this is so sad.
I had exactly the same thing.
And
yeah.
why is that the first thing you're showing me about this guy?
Performance is good,
Yeah.
but the issue is more structural, I think.
Yeah, but also the musical score in all of his movies are great.
Yeah.
This one though, Birdman came out the same year, and it has a very drum-heavy score.
Yep.
But like, I wish that the drummer for this movie was able to be this. Whatever.
I like Birdman. I like it. I've liked it less the more I've thought about it. I don't understand how that beat this for Best Picture. I don't get it. Was Whiplash nominated?
It was.
Like, should have been.
But you know, the victory was in it even being nominated.
Well, sure.
Because I have this thing about the Oscars. People say, "Oh, they only give it to like smaller movies." No, they don't.
Yeah.
Only a certain movie can win Best Picture, it seems, and if it's too big or too small, it won't win.
Yeah.
Which is amazing that like Lord of the Rings won. But anyways, Whiplash is amazing. I feel like at this point everybody's sort of seen it now.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen Whiplash, do, because it's very short. It's only 90 minutes, and
it's too intense to be any longer than that. I don't think I could have handled 10 more minutes of that movie.
It is non-stop. It's a no fat movie.
Yeah.
And
that's a good way to put it.
And there are moments that shocked me. There's a scene involving a crash.
That's what I was gonna say. I've never been rattled by a car crash the way I was in that movie.
And it's heartbreaking. It's kind of maddening.
If you haven't seen it, now you know there's a car crash, but I'm not gonna tell you where it is.
Yeah. So I love Whiplash. It's really great. What's your number 6?
The way that scene is shot is crazy.
It's perfect.
It's crazy. Number 6?
Yeah.
Lego Movie.
That was very close to being on my list.
Yep. I've talked about the Lego Movie ad nauseum. I don't want to go too far into it, but like that hit me in a real like kind of personal, emotional place. It's about imagination. It's about individuality. This is a 1-2 punch for me. Thematically, those are things that tend to, if they're done well, resonate with me a lot. It's so much more thoughtful than something that commercial has any business being, and I really appreciated that. It was pure genius from a company the size of Lego to put out a movie that says, play with our stuff however you want to. I thought that was wonderful. And it's, trifecta, because I'm also a big sucker for father-son stories, and it's got that also. And then I have so much fun getting hung up on the mythology of that world, and how everything works with the kid creating this world, and what stuff is in there that he couldn't possibly know. Like some of the most fun I have with the Lego Movie is stuff that I actually think doesn't quite work. But it's like it breaks my brain, and I just have fun with that. It's also like a technically really impressive movie. It's all done in a computer, but it looks stop motion and it works. It's really cool. That should give me a headache, but it doesn't. It looks really good. Batman's not overused, thank God, and he's hilarious, and it works. And like, I like the Lego Batman movie, but I don't see them ever topping that. I don't know that it's possible. Lego Movie 2 is not great. There was a big misstep there. It's unfortunate. It does not make sense by the end, and felt kind of like a cash in. But I think the Lego Movie is, I've heard people say like Pixar worthy. It absolutely is that. I think it was at the time the best children's movie made in 10 years. Like I go that far. I think it's better than I think it's as good as Pixar's best movies, if not better. I really do.
I agree.
Really?
And I absolutely love the Lego Movie. It's one of those movies where the first time I watched it...
Most people call me hyperbolic for saying that.
No,
like,
it is one
I
of the...
think it's kind of brilliant.
It is. It's wonderful. Phil Lord and Chris Miller...
Also, I'm not a Will Ferrell fan, and he was awesome.
He was great. Phil Lord and Chris Miller directed that movie, and later that year they put out 22 Jump Street, which was also great.
I heard good things about that.
Not Lego Movie great, but still great. And they have not directed a film since.
But they've been writing a lot of stuff separately.
Yeah, but as we can all tell by Lego Movie 2, there's a difference between something they've written,
sure,
and something they've written and directed. And
yeah,
because a lot happens in the directing phase that like plays get changed around or whatever. But
didn't one of them write or co-write Spider-Verse?
What they came up with the story, and they were kind of like
okay.
they kind of willed it into being,
but they didn't actually pen the script.
No, they brought their team on board, basically,
sure.
People they know, which basically goes into my whole theory. Guys, just give Hollywood to Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and everything will be better.
And see, I think a lot of people would disagree with you just because they think that things that their names have been on that aren't great were all their fault. But if they didn't actually direct or write the thing, then
yeah. Film is a very collaborative medium. Just because there's a name you recognize does not mean it's their fault.
And sometimes too collaborative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what I mean is sometimes you got too many fingers in a pot, or sometimes you got micromanaging. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
sometimes,
for sure.
if it was a pure vision of one or two guys, we would have gotten a great movie. But yet, all these people that were not the right creative types that got their hands in it, and that's what I say too collaborative.
That's more like a producing level.
Precisely.
But like when you're working with like editors, your editor brings something to it. When you're working with like so. It's a but the thing about the Lego Movie that I
you don't want 15 writers in the same way you wouldn't want 3 DPs.
No. Yeah, that's
right.
That's true.
Imagine that. Imagine you have 3 directors of photography all working on the same movie. It's gonna suck.
Yeah, that would be a headache. That's what we got in the last night, Transformers.
Oh, okay, all right.
No, that's not true. It has like 4 or 5 aspect ratios it keeps jumping between without any rhyme or reason, and it's maddening.
I thought you were gonna say it had like a unit 2, 3, 4, and 5 director.
I don't know. I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible.
So we're like 15 minutes in. I wanted to run for the hills.
No, the Lego Movie is a movie I deeply, deeply love. I have a very specific memory attached with that, where my brother and I, it snowed like it had not in a long time in Portland, Oregon, and we walked through the snow to go see that movie.
Oh, wow.
And we walked back through, and
that's cool.
I mean, it was a snowstorm in Portland. No one drives during those, and so...
no, shut everything down. You guys aren't used to snow.
Except for the movie theaters. They don't do that, and so we were the only ones in the theater, almost, I think. We missed the beginning, because it took us longer than expected to walk there. But I actually went back a second time with my little brother to go take him to see it. And
I think I went 3 or 4 times.
I fell in love with it. I love Lord and Miller's style and their sense of humor.
Yeah.
Because typically when people have those sensibilities, I don't laugh.
Yeah.
I don't think it's funny. It tends to annoy me and it gets overused.
But since then, we've taken that kind of humor too far in a lot of things.
The Lego Ninjago movie, I think, does that kind of humor bad. And
there are things I laughed at.
No, for
but
sure.
largely, I agree with you. Yeah, that's right.
I think the best thing about Lego Ninjago is the bad guy. He's funny. But like the sense of humor and like the fast pace
and
of it all.
Jackie Chan.
And Jackie Chan. Oh, yeah. I mean, he gets a pass for everything because he's just great and everything. But I really connected with the way that movie explores. Like creativity and in the way like
we're talking Lego Movie now.
Oh yeah, Lego Movie. The way it goes to like Cloud Cuckoo Land.
Yes.
And exploring how like that kind of is like that's a structure that just can't work. And even though like it's fun theoretically, I love Batman. I love Chris Pratt in that movie, and I like how it breaks down hacky like archetypes and like kind of like basically the movies I had grown up with. Like I hate You're the Chosen One movies.
Yeah.
And this is
it's a parody
of that.
Yeah.
Which was the most cathartic thing ever when I'm like 19 going to see that movie.
Have you ever thought about this? The Lego Movie is the Matrix.
Yes.
Like it is.
Yeah. It's wonderful. I love it. It's my number 2 favorite animated movie of the decade. I love it.
I think in like this isn't like my favorite character or anything. I think Unikitty is like a genius concept.
Yes.
You know, the metaphor for, like, bottling up your feelings and pretending like you're fine all the time. And, like, that's what I get the sense that kid creates that because he feels like that's what his parents are doing to him, and like it's just everything is a facet of that kid's personality. You spend no time with the kid, but you know everything about him. Like, it's so cool.
And that little kid looks a lot like my little brother. So it's
interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah, when I was watching that for the first time.
It has no business being as great as it is for the kind of thing that,
and that's
that it is.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller's entire filmography. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movie? What? Oh, it's pretty good. 21 Jump Street, that's going to be a disaster. Oh, it's great. 22 Jump Street? I mean, guys, don't push your luck. Oh, it's even better than 21 A movie made of Legos? Give me a break. It's their best thing ever. Oh my god.
This is just going to be a toy commercial.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the most thoughtful and deepest toy commercial I've ever seen. Yeah. Okay.
And on top of that, it's just so much fun. It's so much fun.
This is why my standards for a Power Ranger movie are so high, because you can make a toy commercial that makes me think about the whole world differently.
Yeah. Ready to move on to number
Yes.
5? My number 5 is a movie I alluded to earlier. It was my number 2 movie last year, but I've seen it like 5 times, so I think I got to put it over Creed 2.
Yeah.
It's a movie you probably haven't heard of. It's called... pardon me. It's a movie you probably haven't heard of. It's called Blind Spotting.
I did hear about that, but I don't know much about it. Yeah.
It is a movie about a lot of things. Racism. It's a movie about cultural identity. It's a movie about projection. Basically, what it's about is...
Is this the first thing on your list that I haven't seen?
Perhaps. You've seen Whiplash, Creed 2, Mad Max, Baby Driver, and Looper.
Yeah, I've seen everything on your list. I'm surprised by that. I expected by now we'd already have like half your list. I'd be like, I don't know what that is. But this I've not seen.
But hey, as you say, cream rises to the top, and you like going to the top and seeing the best stuff.
Yeah,
so, I'm kidding. It's Serenity, and you've seen Serenity because I told you to watch Serenity.
Serenity's brilliant, but in a completely different sort of way.
I saw it twice in theaters. It's great. But Blind Spotting is a very, very good movie. I think it's almost perfect. Basically, what it's about is also from Hamilton. The person who plays Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson is an actor named David Diggs. And he co-wrote this movie, and he co-stars in this movie.
I didn't realize they had dual roles in that play.
Yeah, and because that's the joke, is like Lafayette goes to France, and then Thomas Jefferson comes back from France.
That's hilarious.
And he's just the same actor.
Okay.
But David Diggs and Raphael Cassell are like two like best friends, and in real life, and they co-wrote the screenplay together, and they're rappers together. Raphael Cassell's a white man, and David Diggs is black.
Okay.
And it's about basically their friendship, and they play Colin and Miles. And what happens is Colin is an ex-convict. He spent time in prison, and it's his last week in a halfway house, and it's his last week on parole. And it's sort of about, they live in Oakland, and it's sort of about that culture of Oakland, and it's... exploring their friendship and just kind of the environment that kind of made them who they are. And Colin is a person who's trying to get his life back on track and trying to almost be something he's not, but also being true to who he wants to be. Because Raphael Cassell's character, Miles, is a very volatile human being. Like, he's married and has a kid, but he's a short fuse, and he's a hothead, and he's always getting into fights, and Colin's always the person who has to come in and try to stop them. And so it's kind of exploring that, and it's just a wonderful character study, and I love it. And on top of all of that, it sounds like it's very dramatic. It is so much fun to watch, because like in real life they're rappers, and like they've worked together, and actually Rasco recognized them from a music video that he had seen.
Oh, weird.
And it opens up in a car, and he's like, this car looks familiar. It looks like it's from... And actually, the director of this movie like shot their music videos for them.
Oh,
and,
okay. That's cool.
But it's so much fun, and this is I don't know how, like, what world do we live in where Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Editing? That was one of the worst edited movies of last year.
Yeah.
But like...
That shouldn't have been nominated for anything. Except for maybe Best Actor.
Yeah.
Maybe if you can look past script things.
Yeah, but like it's... Blind Spotting was the best edited movie of last year. As you can see, I like good editing in movies. But,
yeah, sure.
But Blind Spotting is a movie that I found enlightening. I found it very smart and even-handed and thoughtful. It's not preachy in any way, shape, or form. I think you would love it.
Okay.
It reminded me a lot of like Creed 2 in the way it explores culture.
Yeah.
And Like when these people get to rapping, and there's a scene that is basically like the Luis character from Ant-Man, like when he like does this thing where he goes back in time and is like, oh, and this person said blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
There's like that scene is basically in this movie, but it's I think better than any of the times he does it in the Ant-Man movies. And there's a couple of really funny comic book references where there's this person telling a story about two guys on fire, and he describes it as it's like Chris Evans on fire and Michael B. Jordan on fire. I was like, is that a Human Torch reference from the Fox movie? What?
That's crazy.
But Blind Spotting's wonderful. If you haven't seen it, please do. Not a whole lot of people did.
Now, what would have made you blow your brains out if he had said Supernova Bad? Then you'd just be like, what? Who remembers that?
There might even be.
You don't remember that.
I don't even.
You don't even know what I'm talking about.
No. What are you talking about?
The 05 Fantastic Four movie where it's like you're getting close to Supernova Bad. Got it.
But it's very short too. It's only 90 minutes. There's a lot of great directorial stuff in that. So I'd say Blind Spotting's wonderful. You should check it out. What's your number 5?
Okay, so we have about 20 minutes left before
All right.
we absolutely have to quit. So we're going to do our level best to get through the rest of these in that amount of time. My number 5 is Her, which you said you've not seen.
I've not seen.
And I don't want to give too much away about that, but it is, obviously Phoenix is brilliant. But it is, like, I think that at this point, the definitive AI movie, at least of the ones I've seen, because like there's stuff that I've missed, and this movie isn't doing the same things, but like there's some major sci-fi things in the last few years that I haven't seen yet, like Ex Machina. I still haven't gotten around to Ex Machina, but Her is a really cool character study, and it's wonderfully subtle, because like, yes, it's a science fiction thing, but it's just a like 2-hour conversation between a guy and his computer, basically. And Scarlett Johansson gives this amazing voice performance where like she's not there, you never see her, and she's very, very present throughout that movie, and all the way through she's like constantly evolving, and it's really smart in the way that like a modern AI, if this were possible, might achieve sentience and then in self-awareness, and then tap into the internet. Like, once you get the internet involved, all bets are off. The evolution would happen so much faster, and it's the same kind of thing that you had with Ultron, but given time to breathe. So, like, both of those things are doing really similar things with that, but this is not about, like, a bad guy trying to take over the world or something. It's just this lonely guy falling in love with a computer, and the evolution of that of that new self-aware entity. And I only saw it once in the theater, so that's about what I remember. But my experience with it was, this is absolutely brilliant, and it had to go this high on the list. I just haven't gotten around to watching it again, but I really want to.
I desperately want to watch that.
Yeah.
Rasco has been trying to get me to watch that for years.
It's amazing.
Now.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't see it when it came out.
I am too. I thought
Because that was when you were watching a bunch of stuff. That was what, 13, 14?
That came out at the end of 2013.
Okay.
And I started going to the movies religiously in 2014.
Oh, that's right.
And I kind of made a point to exclude 2013 movies so I could just focus on what the new stuff was.
Yeah. So you just never got around to going
I never
back.
got around to watching it.
I think you'd love it.
That's what I hear. I really want to watch it. My number 4 is a movie I know you've seen because we talked about it quite a bit since I've been here. 2017, the best movie, Blade Runner 2049.
I thought that would be higher on your list.
Me too. But this is the only movie I gave a 9.5 to.
So are you seeing a pattern? We both have sequels that are somehow as good or better than the original, and decades later. And this is one of them, man. Like, I don't care what anybody says, 2049 is a better movie than Blade Runner.
I disagree.
That's fine, but it is, to me. Or at least I like it more.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
I've seen the original Blade Runner so many times.
Sure.
Let me tell you, I was against Blade Runner 2049 on principle.
I was too, honestly.
Based on the previews, I thought it looked terrible. I remember when they said that they got Denis Villeneuve to be the director. and I thought that is a great choice. Up until that point,
I never remember that guy's name. It drives me crazy. He's turning into my favorite director. I can't remember his freaking name.
It's French Canadian, so it's like Denis Villeneuve, and so like I actually had to look up a video.
See, now that I've heard it said rhythmically, maybe it'll stick with me better. Yeah.
But I only seen 2 of his other movies. Neither of them were Prisoners, which I hear is amazing.
It's great.
But he did a movie called Sicario.
Yeah, which I've seen. It's not my thing, but it's well made.
It's really good. I think Benicio del Toro gave the best performance of 2015 in that movie. And then I saw the movie he made a little bit, in Arrival, which is a movie.
Yes, which is genius.
And both of those movies I liked a lot. Didn't quite think were great, but I really liked. And I'm like, this guy will make something I know I will love one day. And then when they said he was doing Blade Runner, I'm like, he's the perfect choice. He has that cold, detached sort of style.
Yeah.
And then watching Blade Runner 2049 was like a dream come true. It was like, I thought it would be a disaster. It was the complete opposite. I had an extremely viscerally emotional reaction throughout it. I almost, I had like my tears were, my eyes were pregnant with tears at the end of that movie. And then once it was over, I heard this old man behind me just go, wow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have put it better myself. And it was a magical experience. And while maybe not as good as the original
Blade Runner, this might
Blade
sound
Runner,
awful, but depending on how old that guy was, that was probably really special for him.
Absolutely.
Not just because it was a good sequel to Blade Runner, maybe he loves Blade Runner, but they don't make movies for that guy anymore.
No, they don't. It was a transcendent experience. The fastest 2 hours and 45 minutes of my life. And
see, I didn't have that. I thought it was really long and slow, but not in a bad way. But like, I didn't think it moved at a clip or nothing.
And I just at that time I'd been watching like the original Blade Runner. I watched a lot of slow movies. That's when I was watching a bunch of David Lynch movies as well for the first time, and he is slow.
So you're indoctrinated to that kind of pacing at that point, and I was not.
There's the one thing I don't like about it is Jared Leto. His opening scene, I legitimately don't like his opening scene.
Yeah.
I think it's way too on the nose and whatever. But like other than that, it's basically perfect.
You know who doesn't get enough credit in that movie? Robin Wright, dude.
She's awesome.
Awesome.
And Ana de Armas as Joy was a revelation to me.
Yes,
She was not pushed at all in the marketing. She's in Knives Out. They don't tell you this in the market. She's basically the main character of Knives Out.
Weird.
And she's amazing. She got nominated for a Golden Globe for that role.
So she should be a movie star at this point. Nobody knows who she is, but she's giving these great performances in movies people love, and they're not talking about her.
And directors want to work with her.
Weird.
I know this is going to sound pervy. I don't mean it to. Best sex scene I've seen in a movie this whole decade. It was like using special effects in a very simple, subtle way that spoke volumes. And I love the character of Kay, and that's kind of what it's saying about.
It used to be okay to talk about things that were artistically erotic. That scene has that. It's wonderful. Yeah.
And I love everything. We got to keep going, but I love Blade Runner 2049.
What are we on?
Number 4.
Number 4? Okay, well that's okay. This will go quickly because my number 4 is Blade Runner 2049.
Hey!
Yes, indeed. We just talked about it, so we can go ahead and move on. But yeah, I thought yours would be at least where mine was. I was kind of surprised that it was only a 5. Blade Runner, I mean.
Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about it?
No, I mean, okay, so I guess all I'll say is part of the reason it's this high on my list is because, I mean, it goes without saying, I think 2049 is one of the best science fiction films made in at least a decade, if not 2. It's of, I guess, a franchise now that, like, I understand the relevance of and the importance of, but that I've never particularly enjoyed watching. I think Blade Runner is a brilliant film in its way, but I just don't get a lot of enjoyment out of watching it. And 2049 I had a very different experience with. It's such a classy movie, man. Like,
it's elegant.
It's
sophisticated.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I think it's one of the best performances of Harrison Ford's career, which is
so
crazy because he's like 119 now. Like it's crazy. I'm kidding.
In the marketing, it looked like he didn't give a crap. He just like was wearing a T-shirt. He was like,
Well, and he tends to. I mean, I know that he was like real done with Star Wars and didn't really want to have to be Han Solo again, and they paid him like $1 billion and gave him a blimp or something, and to do that movie. And I assumed he would have the same kind of thing with Blade Runner. It was like I don't want to play the same guy I played 30 years ago, and he must have seen what was in that script, like oh, we're making a real movie here. This is not a cash-in thing. And the thing is, there was not a... I mean, you could tell with the way that movie didn't perform that it was a risk to even make it. So that wasn't like that didn't come across to me as the cash-in thing I thought it might, where it's like, we just gotta put out something that has the brand recognition and see if anybody goes and sees it. It watches, I don't know how it gets off the ground, but it watches like a passion project. It watches almost like, in the best way I can say it, a fan film. If that makes any sense. It's like somebody was a big fan of Blade Runner and knew how to do another one and somehow got the funding to make it. It doesn't feel like a studio film.
Yeah, and I was worried it would be that based on it seemed like based on the trailers, it was learning it was the wrong read of the original Blade Runner, and so I was like, oh no, why are we even the secret weapon of Blade Runner, the first one, is that the movie knows replicants are people from the beginning.
Yes.
But you're the one trying to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah.
And so, but then this one's like, are replicants people? Like, why are we questioning this? The answer was yes.
Yeah.
And then of course, the movie just psychs you out from the beginning and just comes out and says, oh, this guy's a Blade Runner. This Blade Runner is a replicant. But
that is an unsellable movie.
It is unsellable.
It's unsellable.
But I've been hearing about a Blade Runner 2 for so long.
Me too.
And
I didn't think it would ever happen.
I didn't think it would ever happen either. But I guess with Doctor Sleep and...
It's like The Crow. Like, at this point, I don't know if that movie ever gets made. I hope not, but...
How many directors has it gone through in stars?
As many as Flash. No, maybe not that many. Maybe not that many.
No, definitely not as many, but more. So, I think so. Yeah, Blade Runner 2049 is brilliant.
Sorry, we've got 10 minutes.
My number 3?
Yeah.
This is where we're getting into my top 10, my 10 out of 10s.
Now, am I gonna... should I assume that the top 3 are movies that I've never seen?
One of them you have.
Okay, alright, sweet.
Number 3 you have. This is not, I guess, objectively as good as Blade Runner 2049, but it's the movie that made me want to make movies.
Yeah, this is about us. This is about the experiences we had, yeah.
Inception.
Yeah,
From
sure.
2010. I was weeks away from turning 15 years old. When I watched this in theater...
Look, I'm sure that should be on my list. I've not seen it since it was in the theater. I saw it the one time, and I liked it. The hype was so insane with that, I just could not get excited about seeing it again.
I understand.
So I got a blind spot with that right now.
Is this movie perfect? No.
Sure.
It has flaws, but I don't think it has a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that...
You mean it's not fundamentally flawed?
It's not fundamentally flawed. It's one of those things where it's you could talk about how there's so much jargon and exposition throughout the first half. What I will throw out is, it is a film about the creative process. And it's a look inside of how a mind works.
Sure.
And collaboration, and all, I think it is such a...
It's a movie about 5 DPs making a...
but on top of, the first half is all about creation, and the second half is all about executing it. And it's a movie about making movies. It's that's been read into where Leonardo DiCaprio is the director. Tom Hardy can change his face. He's the actor. She's the architect, so she's the screenwriter. And then it's all about creating something that is inauthentic.
It's such a blind spot. I've never heard that read. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But it's a movie. And then bringing in Scarecrow, Cillian Murphy's character. He's the audience, and it's about creating something that is inauthentic but making it feel authentic. It's about creating dreams, and movies are the closest thing we have to dreaming while we're awake.
Yeah.
And me, dreams have always been very personal and profound to me.
Yeah.
And that's what watching this movie was like. And I was floored by it, and I continue to go back to it, and I keep finding more and more things rewarding about it, and I love it. I think it is Christopher Nolan's best film.
Do you really?
I do.
Well...
Because I feel like
Batman Begins, but
I feel like I know him better as a person just from watching his movie.
Sure, yeah. And that does read like a more personal movie for him than other things. My number 3 is Creed, and I don't know how to put one Creed over the other Creed, so this is sort of unfair because in my mind it's those two are just lumped together as number 3. There's the consistency and quality between those movies is freaky, man. It shouldn't work. That should be impossible. It's nuts. We got now a sequel franchise on top of another franchise, and it should just be falling apart. It's not. It's wonderful. We talked a ton about Creed earlier, both of those, so I'm not going to keep going about that, but I love the Rocky franchise, and it was insane that Creed was, in my mind, as good as Rocky. I think Creed and Rocky are right.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as good as that. And Creed 2 is as good as Creed, so it's insane. And I will say this, like, Michael B. Jordan is a really versatile actor. He's like the opposite of Keanu Reeves. Like, he puts on a different face every time he's in a role, and he is as likable, but of course as flawed and believable and interesting as Rocky was. And he is Rocky's opposite, and it should be so obvious on the nose, and it just isn't. And like, it shouldn't. A lot of this is just, it shouldn't work. You know, like, you shouldn't be able to make a franchise about a character that, like, retroactively we decided existed in that universe, and like, Apollo is dead, but like, we gotta capitalize on something from that franchise, so I guess he had a kid, and like, it should have sequelitis to the max. It starts with all these like X's to me, where it's like, nope, don't do that, nope, don't do that, and I'm like, okay, remember how I always say you can make anything work, you just gotta make it work?
Yeah.
Like, Creed is the living embodiment of that. Like,
Well, that's funny because, like, I'm going back and watching the original Rocky movie, watching Apollo Creed, I believe he had no legitimate kid.
I think he had 5 of those.
Yeah, he's the Wilt Chamberlain of boxing, so.
And also, Apollo is my favorite character in the Rocky movies. I love him so much.
He's cool. I love him.
That's why I got insanely giddy when that actor was in Mandalorian. I just couldn't even handle it.
Have you watched Arrested Development?
No, is he in that?
Carl Weathers plays himself throughout that entire show.
Really? Like, as a recurring character? He's in, like, a lot of it?
Yes. Because one of the actors, like Tobias...
It's not something I would have ever thought to look at, but maybe I will now. I love him.
It's brilliantly written. But he basically plays a slumming version of himself who's, like, conning one of the characters out of money so he can eat.
He's a guy, if he ever showed up to a con, he's a guy I've always wanted to see at a con, yeah.
And also Action Jackson is a movie he was in at one point, and that's constantly referenced in...
I've never heard of that. Okay. All right, we only have a few minutes left, so let's try and knock this out.
Number 2, the best movie of 2016, which was the worst year of movies in this decade.
And maybe of all time. It was really bad.
This movie came
2016 was the worst year as a year.
Yeah, it can go die in a hole, it sucked. Number 2, Sing Street.
Which you've talked about ad nauseum, and I've never seen it.
Rasco and I went to New York to watch a stage production of Sing Street because we made a pact 3 years ago that if that ever happened, we would totally do it. And it finally happened, and we got to see it.
So is that what it sounds like? Is it like a street musical kind of thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
It is basically...
What is it?
It's a diegetic musical.
Well, but it is a musical.
It is a musical. It is about a kid named Connor. It's not why I like it. But it's 1985 Dublin, Ireland. There's a big economic problem happening. He gets moved from his private school into a public Catholic school. It's very rough. And his parents are getting a divorce. It's very sad. And actually, the creepy boyfriend from from Transformers 4, he plays his older brother in that movie. And I was like, oh, this guy. And he gives the best performance in the movie. And he's like probably the best character in the movie. But then what happens is his brother is kind of a stoner and just kind of stays at home, but he idolizes him. And they have this thing where they talk about music a lot. And then he sees this girl across the street one day, and he like immediately has the hots for her, and is like, hey, you should give me your number. I'm in a band. We need a model for a music video. And then she's like, okay, fine. And then he goes across the street to his friend and says, we got to start a band. So he kind of starts a band as just a means of getting a girl, but then he realizes it's like the perfect venue for letting out all of like these feelings he's feeling. And it's a coming of age movie that's also pairing coming of age with the creative like enlightenment. And it's a really wonderful parallel. And the music that's in the movie, they have like Rio by Duran Duran, they have Stay Clean by Motorhead.
My son has a friend named Rio, and every time he brings her up, her name is Rio, and she walks across the sand.
But the music, the original music, blows all of the other music out of the water.
Really?
It's incredible. Drive It Like You Stole It should have won Best Original Song at the Oscars, but of course La La Land had to take up 3, and we had to nominate that song from Trolls for some reason. Anyways,
well, and we don't make a lot of musicals anymore, so if one big one came out but there were other good ones, it's ridiculous if the Oscars is pretending like there was one musical. And I know they do that.
But like Sing Street came out in we got it wide release in May of 2016, which made me think the summer was going to be awesome because we got Nice Guys, we got Civil War, we got Sing Street.
Nice Guys was in my top 30 or 40.
It's in my top 20, yeah. And then nothing else for the rest of the summer. But Sing Street's amazing. I own it. I've seen it countless times at this point, and you should watch it.
I'll have to finally do that on your recommendation, yeah. My number 2, you talked about already. I also kind of expected this to be higher on your list, but Whiplash. I mean, how do you not, man? And I've only seen it the one time. I didn't see it in the theater. I didn't see it when it came out. Somebody requested that for You Made Me Watch, and Eric and I watched it together, and we're just stunned. It was one of those, like, stunned silence things where it's like, do we even need to talk about this? Can't we just say watch it? Like, doesn't it speak for itself?
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely brilliant, and it's almost like, I always hesitate saying this, it feels to me like an objectively brilliant movie.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Where
I know
it's
exactly
just like,
how you feel.
it's just, what would you change? What would you do to it? You know?
Yeah.
And I also want to see that as a stage play. I think there's absolutely a stage play there.
That would be awesome.
I think that would be so neat. I don't necessarily need fake blood, but that resonated with me as well. You talked about like being in band and stuff. I was in choirs all growing up, and I never saw that, but there was absolutely a degree of with certain like choral directors that I saw of like pushing people really hard and no positive reinforcement, and sometimes they were better for it. Like, that guy has a point, and that's what's so interesting about that is it's easy to vilify Simmons' character in that, but he's also somewhat onto something. And I mean, like, usually for me the answer to a lot of things tends to be something in the middle, but the point of that movie is if you compromise too much, you are not going to reach your full potential. So, like, yeah, maybe he's onto something, but then is it worth the psychological scarring, you know? And so maybe if, in order to be the best, you have to basically like psychologically abuse a person, maybe it's not worth being that good. Maybe not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like his
maybe you have to lose something of your humanity in order to be the best there's ever been, and maybe that's not worth losing that over.
Yeah. And that's the first movie that's the first thing I saw Melissa Benoist. Is that how you pronounce her name? Is it Benoist?
I think it's Benoist, actually, yeah. I forgot she was in it. She's really good in that.
Yeah, and that whole relationship is indicative of like where he's going in that movie.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love Whiplash.
It's one of those things that, like, I don't want to really talk about because I could run off and really analyze that movie, and like I'd rather not talk about it, just tell people to see it, or like write a term paper, you know.
Yes.
Are we at number 1?
We are number 1.
All right, let's do it. We got just a couple minutes, man.
My favorite movie.
And then we'll just throw out some runners up real fast. Go ahead.
My favorite movie of the decade.
The whole decade, you guys.
People have memed this movie, so I know exactly what the comments are going to be.
Uh-oh. Is it Cats? It's Cats,
It
right?
took 12 years to make Boyhood.
Okay.
This movie was profound to me.
See, I didn't see that. And so
you didn't watch it?
I didn't see it. Yeah.
Well,
it's another thing I've heard you talk about.
I loved it. Now, you can't. There are some things you just can't take away from an experience, right? I am the same age as that kid, you know, and so it's like I was 18 in 2013, you know, and so it's like So as a lot of this kind of comes to a personal thing. When I was young, I was a bit self-righteous, where I was like, oh, I'm morally better than some people, and I had a bit of like a blinders on. I didn't really see a lot of the world.
You probably are than some people.
But I was a bit of a I wasn't satisfied. Like, I didn't have a whole lot of friends growing up. I didn't have my parents split up and whatever. But I knew eventually my life is some great story just waiting to get started and whatever. And I kind of took other people for granted. And watching that movie opened my eyes to how much of a butthead I had sort of been to some degree throughout my life. And because it's somebody who it's a family that was very different than mine, but also very similar. and it was one of those things where I was basically looking at the same time I was alive in those times, but from a different perspective, and learning to. It basically taught me empathy and learning to understand other people's walks of life in a way that wasn't just you intellectually know that, but to like feel that and see that. And it's fake. It's just a movie, but it so accurately recreated life in a way that I found to be kind of eye-opening and it indicted me, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, it's not meant to be that. It's directed by Richard Linklater, who I love. He made Dazed and Confused, which you didn't really like.
Yeah.
But he also made like School of Rock with Jack Black,
which I love.
Yeah, and he's made a ton of movies. He made like Before Sunset, Before Sunrise, and Before Midnight, which are like a trilogy that are each 9 years apart, starring Ethan Hawke and Judi Delpy.
That's a cool idea.
Ethan Hawke plays like the dad in this movie, and the conversations they have throughout this movie, and the way you just see things change, and the way you just see the age in the actors. You know, there's people say, well, if this didn't take years to make, it would just be this kind of below average coming of age movie. You know, that argument sounds a lot like to me. Well, if Star Wars wasn't in space, it'd just be a Western. It's like, yeah, but they did film it this way, and there's an inherent. It's like when you watch a practical effect versus a CG effect. You know it's there, and it's like you can't take it away.
I haven't seen the movie, but it sounds like you're saying like it's not just the gimmick of that. It's not just the novelty.
It's not a novelty because like Richard Linklater is obsessed with time. Like there's that trilogy that's.
Well, I mean that might be for some people a novelty that makes them go see it in the first place. But,
absolutely.
But you're saying that like that's not all it has going for it.
Absolutely
like,
not.
It probably also still has to have a script and actors behind it, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it's kind of amazing that nobody died while they were making this. Like
really?
Ethan Hawke didn't get hit by a train or anything. And Patricia Arquette's in this movie as the mom. She won an Oscar for it.
Wow.
I think she's fine, but Ethan Hawke.
That's really funny. It's my favorite movie of the decade. There's an actress the way she was fine.
Well, everyone loved her in that.
Yeah.
I think Naomi Watson Birdman should have won that, but she wasn't even nominated.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, what's his face? Ethan Hawke should have won Best Supporting Actor. Oh, J.K. Simmons was in Whiplash? Oops, wrong year, buddy. And
that's true.
But I love Boyhood, and
did Simmons win?
Oh yeah,
I couldn't remember. Yeah,
he did. And rightfully so.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, so so sometimes there's victories. That,
yes. But Boyhood was a profound experience and one that I have regularly, and I find it. But
do you go back to it?
I go back to it. But another thing, the older I get, the more I see myself in his dad now.
Interesting.
And so,
yeah.
And because his dad starts off as one character and ends up completely differently. And so it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to find it life-affirming from years and years to come, a lot like It's a Wonderful Life. So, yeah.
Well, interestingly, neither of our number ones were on the other person's list at all, but I didn't see that movie. My number one, and this is based somewhat on the fact that it is the movie that I've gone back to the most, or one of them. Certainly in, what am I trying to say? It's only been out for 3 years and I've seen it like 6 times. My number one is The Founder.
Whoa!
I can't help myself, man. And The Founder is the only movie on this list that made my top 20 of all time, so it just makes sense that it would be my number one. I think it's Michael Keaton's crowning performance.
Michael Keaton's
I
excellent.
love it so much. It hits me in a whole bunch of different places. I've talked about that movie a lot. I don't know what exactly I should say about it, but I just think I just think the Founder is the best biopic ever made.
Wow.
I love it. Like, and I think I'm the only person on the planet that likes it as much as I do. Like it's well liked, but like I really like The Founder. I go back to it a lot.
I'm glad that's the number one on your list. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
No one else would put it on there, and like it speaks, I think, something about you that is on there.
Some of it,
it's a really good movie.
Yeah, some of it I think is because I didn't know if you'd seen it or not.
I had. It's been forever since I've seen it. I remember liking it when it came out, but like that's really cool that you love it though.
Some of it is because of the way it works on a literary level, and some of it is personal stuff. So that's a movie about a character who is doing the wrong things and has everything handed to him at the end, and it's kind of like he certainly has to pay like personal prices, but it's like life's not fair, and at the end of the day, sometimes crime does pay. And obviously, this is all based on a true story, and a lot of the stuff in this actually really did happen. But like, of course, I'm looking at it like as a fictional piece, and it's it's about a guy who like ruins the legacy of a couple of guys in order to like steal it and build an empire with McDonald's. And it's in some ways like it doesn't feel like a cynical movie, but it is absolutely about like everything that's wrong with like big business and stuff, certainly. But like this guy never feels like he's not a real person. Like he doesn't care about people to some degree, but he has an opportunity, he takes it, and he runs the nines. We are all out of space. So we're going to have to go ahead and quit now. I tell you what, we'll do our runners-up in the next video. We're going to do a worst of list, and we'll do our runners-up in that video. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a few days with that video. Bye, folks.